Today's daf Ayin Aleph, is sponsored in the memory of Zisel ben Avram. The Gemara discusses the statement in the Mishnah, Gonav v'tovach b'yom HaKippurim, mishalem tashlumei daled v'hei. One that stole and slaughtered the animal on Yom Kippur is required to pay the fine of 4 and 5. Now, the simple understanding of the Mishnah statement is that one who violates Yom Kippur is not, because he's not liable to Misas Bezdin, he's not liable to a court sentence of capital punishment. Therefore, he is not exempt from paying by way of kamle b'derabim minei. We don't apply to him the principle of he receives the more stringent punishment and is exempt from the lesser punishment. However, this does not resolve why he is not exempt. He still should be exempt from paying 4 and 5. Why? The verse in the subject of Malchus says, Kidei rish aso. A person is punished for his evil doing in the singular, rish aso. Chazal learn out that he can be punished only for one crime. If he receives lashes, as he does in the case of violating Yom Kippur, he should not have to pay 4 and 5. This is the view of the Chachamim. For example, Eidim Zomimim. Eidim Zomimim are witnesses that falsely testified. Normally, such Eidim should get Malchus, and they do. Those that testify falsely are Chayiv Malchus. In this case, because the law is what they wanted to do to the victim, the court does to them, therefore, they do not get Malchus. Why? Kidei rish achas atam chayvo v'atam chayvo mishum shtei rishios. Rabbi Meir, however, disagrees. Rabbi Meir holds that he is loke mishalim, and by the same token, it would appear to be that he should be chayiv in the case of where he does slaughter on Yom Kippur the animal, he would be chayiv daled v'hei. However, to adopt the Mishnah according to Rabbi Meir creates another problem. Our Mishnah requires payment of 4 and 5 only for one who sold the animal on Shabbos after the theft. Rabbi Meir, quoted in a brisa, requires payment even if he slaughtered the animal on Shabbos. Meaning that Rabbi Meir holds even where he's chayav misas bezdin, he still has to pay the fine. That doesn't jibe with our Mishnah. The Gemara suggests, reconciling the brisa with the Mishnah, that our Mishnah is discussing a case where he appointed an agent to slaughter the animal. So the brisa would be explained as not him doing the slaughter, but an agent doing the slaughter. And since he is not liable to the death penalty, he is required to pay the 4 and 5. And even Rabbi Meir does subscribe to the principle of kamle b'derabim minei, but not in the case where the thief himself did not do the slaughtering. However, according to the principle of ein shliach lidvar aveira, the agent's action is independent of the thief. And therefore, why would the thief be obligated to pay? It's the thief it's the agent that slaughtered and not the thief. The Gemara brings three different derivations from the Torah to apply a fine even in this case, either because it says utvacho umacharo, the two words juxtaposed indicate a similarity, and that they are both chayiv, even where it involves somebody else. Just like a sale involves somebody else, so too the slaughtering. So even if somebody else slaughters, still the thief is chayiv the daled v'hei. And there are another two drushes that the Gemara brings, because the Torah says the word or tachas. Now, still, this does not resolve the opinion of the Chachamim. They do exempt him for the 4 and 5. However, the Gemara explains their opinion, the Chachamim that we are referring to here, is Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon that holds a shechita that does not permit the animal's use is not legally a shechita. There are three opinions concerning one benefiting from a malacha done on Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon would have to follow the most stringent opinion of Rabbi Yochanan HaSandler. He derives from the verse, Ushmartem es HaShabbos ki kodesh hi lochem mechaleleha mos yumas, that a deliberate violation of Shabbos, the benefit from that object becomes like Hegdish. Kodesh Ilochem means it's like Hegdish. Just like Hegdish is Asr B'Hana, one cannot benefit from a Maisa Shabbos in the same way as he cannot benefit from Hegdish. Therefore, in our case, it is not legally a Shechita. He cannot benefit from it, and therefore the thief is not liable to pay the 4 and 5. There is a fundamental question whether this prohibition is from the Torah or from the rabbis. The verse would be teaching Shabbos is holy, not its violations. If we're saying that the halacha of a Maisa Shabbos, that one cannot benefit from it, is only rabbinic, then the verse would be teaching Shabbos is holy when it says Kodesh Elochem, but not the violation. And if it is rabbinic, then the exemption for 4 and 5 would not apply to Shabbos, only to the other cases of the Brisa, namely Shor HaNiskal and Avodah Zarah. There's another fundamental question as to how to define an act of slaughter. Does it begin with the initial incision and then complete with the cutting of the majority of the esophagus and trachea? Or is it not considered any act of slaughter until the completion of the act? If we follow the first opinion, that as soon as he begins the incision for idolatrous purposes, the animal becomes Asr B'Hana, so that it is not worth anything by the time he completes his action. The slaughterer cannot be held accountable for the 4 and 5 payment because the word utvacho indicates he must finish the act. So when he stole an animal that had no value to its owner, he slaughtered it when it was already of no value to its owner. He shouldn't have to pay the 4 and 5. Therefore, the Gemara answers, it can only be in a case where he indicated his intent was to worship the animal at the end of the act of slaughter. In the case of Shor HaNiskal, he handed it to a custodian. The animal was killed and was condemned in his custody, stolen from him and slaughtered. Although the animal is forbidden from benefit, if it is owned by the custodian based on the principle of davar agorim l'mamun k'mamun dami, since if the animal was alive, he could return it to the owner. Now that it's not alive, it's going to cost him, and therefore he becomes an owner in a certain respect, since he's liable to give him another animal. And in addition, even after the verdict, the custodian could have returned the animal intact to the owner after the verdict of the court, according to Rabbi Yaakov, even though it is a prohibited item from benefit.